Yeah, what I wanted to present to you today is the ongoing research that I'm doing with Eric McGlinchey in the framework of a Minerva grant by the Defense Department. And we are looking at soft power and media influence of Russia, the US, China in Central Asia, and also looking at kind of nationalist/Islamist media production in the region itself. And so the research I wanted to present here today is in fact based specifically on some surveys that were commissioned by the State Department since 2005. So we have more than 10 years of pooling, which is quite rare, with the kind of same repeating question. In Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, I will be here focusing only on Kazakhstan, but happy to answer question if you have about Kyrgyzstan. We didn't treat the Tajik data yet. So it's really a unique database to analyze the evolution of the public opinion toward the main powers, and we were especially interested, so we ran some regression to try to identify variables that would help us understanding who think what about which country in the region, and I was especially interested in trying to see if we can identify some social groups that would be oriented toward one of the big three countries or not. And I will be presenting that to you very soon. So first, just some general data from this survey. So you can see going from 2005 to 2016, level of favorability toward the US, NATO, Russia, and China. So favorability toward Russia, very high, always between 80 and 90%. Favorability toward China, second, going from 60 to 80%. Favorability toward the US, between 50 and 60%, with a big gap after 2014. Of course, like going low, around 40% of favorable opinion, and then now seeming kind of going back around 50%. Of course, it's only data. It means we don't know what people really understand when they answer the question. We can also imagine that it's much more challenging in Kazakhstan to say that you disagree, you have unfavorable view of Russia, than to say you have unfavorable view of the US. So you can imagine you have also a certain level of self-censorship that needs to be taken into consideration. And of course, these elements, we don't see them in the data. So always take some distance with this kind of data. What is also interesting is to see that the peak of anti-Americanism with this low 40% in 2015 kind of is slowing down now, and that's interesting to always remember that this kind of peak of anti-Americanism, they are often temporary, and we see exactly the same in Russia. In the polls we have for Russia, well, the peak is over now, and things are kind of slowly improving a little bit. Second, aspect of the survey more in detail. So we divided the opinion into, the survey divided it into very unfavorable, somewhat favorable, somewhat unfavorable, very unfavorable, and you can see that you have an interesting kind of polarization with very often more people being some very unfavorable or very favorable, and the one being kind of somewhat in the middle, reducing, which is a good example on how the level of geopolitical so-called polarization has been growing in Kazakhstan and all over the region since 2014. Very briefly, so you can compare the Kazakhstani opinion of Russia and China, and here also some interesting elements. You can see that the level of people being totally unfavorable to Russia is very low, because probably, as I said, you have issues of self-censorship or elements that are considered kind of not the one you want to tell to someone coming at your door for doing a survey. But what I'm really interested here presenting to you is, in fact, the analysis that we have been doing on the data. So we had to work on the data, so you cannot really read the graph, and you don't have to do so. It's just I will be giving you the kind of reading of that, but that's how we have been running these regression tables, taking into consideration several variables and trying to see if we can identify social groups that would be more kind of turned toward US, Russia, or China. So the first interesting element that we noticed is that, in fact, Oh yeah. So the usual suspect that we would imagine having were either absent or were very weak. And I will give you the main example here. First, of course, given the literature on the Central Asian society and given the US narrative about its presence in the region, we thought that we would see differences by age, that we would see age cohort being visibly connected to one geopolitical orientation or another one. And there was absolutely nothing. Nothing, even not the smallest correlation, meaning that young people are no more pro-US or pro-Europe, pro-Western than any older generation. So all the narrative about young people not having faced the Soviet regime would be more interested by the West than their previous generation is totally absent in all these surveys. And globally, in the relationship toward Russia and China, there is just no age visible. We have also other surveys done not by the State Department, but by the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, correlating that information by showing on the contrary, so they are even going in the reverse direction, that the younger people are in Kazakhstan, the more anti-US they are, and the more anti-Western and democratic value they are. And so that is an interesting finding that have, of course, a lot of policy implication on the way US is framing its policy for the region. So the second element that we noticed that we wanted to look at is that the knowledge of English, because here also US cultural diplomacy for the region is based on the notion that if we promote English knowledge in the region, we will be also promoting our values. Well, that also doesn't work, which means that people speaking English are no more pro-Western than those not speaking English. What is interesting, and that's kind of a fascinating element that we were not thinking we would find, is that those who speak English are more open to the world than those who don't speak, which means that those who speak English are more favorable toward Russia and toward China also. So English is an opening, is a gate to open to the world, but it has nothing linked to the US or to Western values. Then, of course, we look at ethnicity, and here also, contrary to what we could imagine, ethnicity doesn't play a role, which means that ethnic Russians in Kazakhstan are no more pro-Russian or anti-US than the average population. The only moment where ethnicity seems to be playing a role, and I will come back on that, it's specifically for ethnic Kazakhs toward China. Very unfavorable correlation for ethnic Kazakh toward China. But toward the US, toward Russia, no ethnic specificity visible at all. Then we looked also, of course, at language and access to the news. Language is also interesting, and it's kind of correlating what I just said about ethnicity. Accessing the news in Russian, accessing the news in Kazakh, accessing Kazakhstani news in Russian doesn't have any impact on the way people are more or less favorable toward the US or toward Russia. It has an impact toward China. If you are a Kazakh speaker and you don't access your news in Russian, you will be statistically very anti-Chinese. So that's the only moment where the correlation between language and a country work, but nothing about US and Russia. Access to the news, which is a little bit different from languages, is sometimes offering some elements. So the only moment where we see it is that accessing the news through TV, accessing the news through internet. Accessing the news through TV doesn't give any direction, any predisposition toward any of these countries. Accessing the news through internet is giving kind of like that information. Sometimes it's kind of giving something that looks like pro-US and then pro-Russia and then pro-Chinese or anti-Russia, anti-US, anti-Chinese. So like it's not very easy to use, or it means that just you have kind of fashionable trends going on the media, on the internet that can influence people, but it's changing very fast. It's a kind of very unstable, irregular element. And then we discovered some unexpected findings that we ever imagined would be there. The first one is that how people see the state of Kazakhstani economy. So it doesn't mean the way they think they are wealthy or they are poor. It's the way they think the country is going on economically. The more people think Kazakhstan economy is going well, the more they are favorable to the US, but also to Russia and to China. The more they think Kazakh economy is going badly, the more they are distrustful toward the three of them, Russia, US, and China. So you see here, the point here too is not a kind of geopolitical opposition, it's just being open to foreign actors or being against all foreign actors. The second element that we were also quite surprised is how religion plays a role. So the more people are believers and regularly praying, Muslim or Christian, the more they are open to the world and the more they are pro-US. And that was something we were also not interesting. My kind of presupposition was that people who were considering themselves very active Muslim would be quite anti-US with this usual narrative about the US are at war with Islam. Quite the contrary in the survey, which would mean that if we look for some explanation, maybe the feeling of living in countries, in Kazakhstan, or in a country where expressing religious practices is still kind of difficult would make the US narrative about religious freedom more interesting or appealing. That's one of the possible explanation. But that was interesting because it was both for Muslim and Christian. So here also no differences between ethnic Kazakhs and ethnic Russian. And then the last element were the regions, and that's kind of puzzling, and I will not come with a good explanation. So southern region and Almaty, very unfavorable to the US, very unfavorable to China. To China, we can understand, we have some information, it's mostly the agricultural, rural Kazakh-speaking region, having some tensions in their relationship to China, while southern region would be more less favorable to the US than northern region. I have really no clue. The northern region, so north, center, and west, very clearly having more favorable view of the US than the average. So here also going totally contrary to our vision of the northern region being the one oriented toward Russia with this Russian-speaking minority. That doesn't seem to work on the survey, and that's kind of data going all over the decades that we have. So quite a puzzling element. Another regional aspect that I think make more sense and that we can more easily explain is that Astana are very particular. Astana as a city is generally very dissociated from the rest of the country, largely more anti-Russian than the average, largely more pro-US than the average. So really Astana, the bubble, with all its federal, kind of making the parallel with Washington, with its civil servant and its kind of specific political atmosphere representing the kind of the new mainstream of Kazakhstani elites being kind of more and more distrustful toward Russia. So that's kind of, you can see some of these elements are really interesting and some are kind of challenging our conventional wisdom on who think what in Kazakhstan. So some further question, and that will be my kind of conclusion, is that, of course, for the moment, as you can see from my presentation, we didn't kind of isolated any causal mechanism that would explain why people have some favorable view of the US or other countries. We will be doing focus group and having some experiments in the three countries we are looking at to try to understand what can make sense. Of course, one of the big aspects is the role of media, and that was part of our project. I think very generally the media role is often overestimated. We know that by a lot of media studies all over the world that it's not people getting influenced by media, it's people selecting the media that is already the one that already share their own perspective. So they are just self-reinforcement. Media play a role of self-reinforcement or of echo chamber. So that's probably not what is explaining the different geopolitical orientation of citizens. Then it's very difficult when you begin to really look in depth about media production and media influence in Kazakhstan, very difficult to dissociate what is Russia produced, what is produced in Russia and in Kazakhstan, and what is produced in Kazakhstan. That may seem simple, that's not if you really begin to look by broadcasting each of the programs going on Kazakh TV. That's quite challenging sometimes to really understand who is doing what and what does that mean. And what seems interesting is that since 2012, but more clearly since 2014, the Kazakhstani authorities have been really pushing for making less and less Russian political show available on the Kazakhstani channel, trying to kind of cut this influence. They are all available for all those who have cable or satellite, so if they want to look at Solovyov and other political Russian political talk show. They can still do that, but it's no more or almost no more broadcasted on the Russian TV. But Russian miniseries and films are still kind of hitting being on the highest level of followers. So clearly, if there is a Russian influence, it's going not really through news, but going all through fiction. And I think that's an important element if we want to realize how much it's about habit and sensitivities and some cultural element and not about politics or geopolitics. Then the notion of influence is also very poorly calibrated. We have information, so that's also part of our research. Yes, people watch Russian TV, not so much as we would imagine, and then if they are asked, do you trust Russian TV, then the level of trust is very low. So what do you do with this kind of information? You can consider, yeah, even if people say they don't trust, they are still getting some kind of, imperceptible, implicit influence, but still, it's quite difficult for us to come with this kind of assertive narrative that it's all about Russian media influence. And so what seems to be really the critical element is everything related to social habits, family, friends, shared symbol, and something that I already presented last year here at the security workshop, the rise of conservative values that are probably explaining a lot why people are kind of oriented toward one or the other countries, but that's clearly not age, not knowledge of English, and not the usual variables we would imagine. That's something much more complicated and probably much more embedded into the individual life of each citizen. And so, as you understood, one of the conclusion of this kind of first round of research is that you don't have any clear geopolitical choice. People are either in favor of the three big powers or against the three of them. And if one country is getting more critical aspect that can be opposed to the other, it's China. But the US-Russia geopolitical opposition is not visible in the survey. And I think that's really something interesting because we tend to kind of geopoliticize too much our analysis of what is going on. And then very often, and that's something we are also beginning working on with the focus group, we have kind of unexpected ideological combination depending on the question. If you ask questions to people during focus groups about conservative values and their relationship to the US, you will almost spontaneously, except for the few liberals, but they are a minority in Kazakhstan, people will side with Russia on this notion that, well, Russia is fighting for conservative values and we are sharing with Russia with that narrative. If you ask a question to the same group of people about something related to Kazakh ethnic identity and their vision of the past, then of course, then the relationship with Russia will be kind of broken and you will have more people who would say, I'm siding with Russia against the US in terms of conservative value, I'm not siding with Russia in terms of interpreting the Russian past and the Soviet past. So the same people can be on every side of the question and the relationship to external power, depending on the way the question is framed. And I think all these elements are important to kind of realize in our analysis on how the Central Asian society are evolving very fast now ideologically, and also it has a lot of, I think, policy implication for the US on the way we want to frame the US kind of storytelling for Central Asian society. And I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.